Taking the album Blackbird from Alter Bridge, metal, not badly mixed and mastered, it's not great either, but I think it's a good indicator of actually how these headphones perform with some badly mastered stuff, which we will get onto some good stuff in a minute as well. The meaty guitars, the visceral low end, and the very angry sub-bass category will have to be given to the Atrium. I think then comes Caldera, then finally Verite. I think Caldera is a bit more technically capable. It's definitely more defining in the bass category and instrument category within the stage, so that around the instrument is a void where perfect resonances of the instrument can be heard. I think each instrument has the ability to actually stand out within the stage and not encompass another instrument next to it. Every instrument is very large sounding, which is quite surprising. It's definitely a bigger sounding headphone than Verite and Atrium. And not only that, I think it's a fuller sounding instrument. Not a fuller sounding headphone, a fuller sounding instrument. So for example, if you're listening to a saxophone, a double bass, a drum kit, from the upper frequencies all the way to the lowest frequencies, the instrument sounds well defined, full-bodied and big and tonally dense and very weighty. Taking an electronic track here, something from Infected Mushroom in the Converting Vegetarian album, this is where some indicators can be seen of spikes. For example, the mid bass of Atrium is the most elevated. Sometimes it can sound a little too much, and I would say it never really truly bleeds into the upper bass region, but I think the control is given to Caldera's and then Verite-Open. So in linearity form, I would give it to Verite first, then Caldera with a bit more elevation, impact and visceral punch, and then the incisive, angry, huge punchiness of Atrium. Upper bass region, all three of these headphones, Verite, Atrium and Caldera, is very well articulated. Nothing sounds thin on any of these headphones. Presentation is excellent, resolvability is like this. Atrium at the lowest, and then Verite with that beryllium, snappy, resolving quick driver, and then the insanity of Caldera's above those two. Mid-range, this is my speciality, this is my love. Any headphone with wonky mid-range, with something out of whack, I pick up on and I do not appreciate. Fortunately, all three of these headphones are spectacular, but giving different tonalities in their own way. I would say Atrium is the most neutral, then Verite on the other end of the spectrum, and Caldera sitting in the middle. Vocals, female category in the lower to mid. For example, Billie Eilish, taking the track Lovely, is rich, articulate, close up and in your face and beautifully presented. You can almost see the expression on that girl's face. It's beautiful. Then we go to Verite. I think this is where an emphasis on the warmth is actually more defined using the BE2 pads. And then obviously Atrium being a more darker reference neutral sound is gorgeous, but you take your pick. The treble region, I think the most aggressive out of the three is definitely Verite for me. Then I would give it to Caldera. Then I would give it to Atrium. I would say Atrium is the least resolving out of the three. Then I would give it to Caldera, because I've been having a little issue with cymbals and metallic sounds. I don't think it sounds quite on the levels of Verite for articulation and timbre. I think this is more along the lines of the Lcd5 rather than, say, for example, a Susvara for that metallic sort of sound. But I am using an open mesh with these pads, so there's a lot of variations that we can play with. And obviously this is on solid state right now. Macro dynamics is wonderful on this headphone. I would say Atrium first, then Caldera, then Verite. But they're pretty close to each other. They're all very, very viscerally impactful. They're all kind of insane. And they all can cross large boundaries in regards to genres. I think the Verite is the least Atrium is the most, but Caldera sits in the middle again. How does the Caldera fare against the Susvaras, the Lcd5 and the Dan Clark Stealths? Let's discuss. Caldera, using these stock leather pads, is a different tuning to Susvaras to my ears. I think it's more lush in the mid-range. On comparable equipment, it's more meaty, it's more weighty, and it definitely punches harder. Susvaras does all of those things and more when you go up in scale in regards to the equipment. I think to get a punch the way you do on a Caldera, for example on the Astel and Kern over there, the CA1000T, or even the Diablo, you need an AHB2 with Susvaras to get the same large movements of air to move and that punch. The treble region, timbre and textural information and tactility, nothing can touch a Susvaras. It's the most organic sounding headphone on the planet. But Calderas, with its tonal density and timbre, can achieve a lot of that with very, very, very lower end equipment. The ceiling of Calderas can be hit very, very quickly. I think the Calderas stage-wise, I would say on the equipment I have tested, matches the Stealth, probably on the levels of the Susvara. They do trade blows depending on what tube amplifier you put them on, but Lcd5 is definitely behind these lot in regards to stages, rather intimate. What surprised me was the Stealths being able to keep up with the Calderas in regards to stage. That's more of a Harman curve tuning. This retains that Harman curve tuning somewhere in the mid-range really. It's between 3, 4, 5 kilohertz-ish, maybe slightly lower, 2, 3. And it's not as reference sounding as the Stealths, definitely. This is more of the ZMF tonality and weight and density. This is definitely a ZMF headphone. You will not miss it. You will be able to derive a lot of ZMF out of the Calderas. I would say don't dwell too much on the topology of planars and dynamics, because Zach has done an incredible job here matching both topologies so that you get the best of both worlds. You've got the speed, resolvability, impact, macro dynamics, and the low sub-bass extension of planars. The amount of blood and sweat and going back to the drawing board that Zach has put into this is quite insane. And he has managed to get the dynamics, the weight, and the organic characteristics of the Verite into the same planar driver. In the Verite-Open review here, I stated this is the best of Zach's headphones. I will have to eat my words. I never truly heard Calderas the first time around the way I've been hearing it over the last few weeks now. Maybe it was down to break-in. Maybe it's down to the open mantle mesh, but my goodness. This, alongside Verite and Atrium, will be on my wall for a very, very long time to come. These are the cowhides. These change the sound characteristics of the Caldera quite significantly. It becomes a brighter sounding headphone. It definitely opens up the mid-range so that it really does lean into the Verite mid-range characteristic. It's a lot closer. It's a lot more taking little notes from the HD800S in the mid-range category. This is definitely a brighter sounding pad, so bear that in mind. It's not for all genres the way these pads are, but these have been my favorite. They feel a bit more resolving, a bit more airy, a bit more open, and my goodness, on tubes, these are the pads I've been using consistently. They are definitely a brighter sounding pad than the stock. I find that the bass response is definitely the same, but the presence and the articulation and the resolvability and the detection of instruments bound within their stage is a lot more prominent on the cowhides than it is on the stock for me personally, and in conjunction with a frequency response of my own hearing. You guys know as a long-time viewers, I'm sure. And for those of you new to the review and new to the channel, hi and welcome. You know mid-range plays a very big role in my life when music is concerned, and I must say the Calderas don't disappoint. I genuinely prefer it on the cowhide because it's more open, it's more brighter sounding, more resolving, and it's just gorgeous. I don't think you'll go far wrong by owning both of these, but some of you who are a little bit sensitive to the regions of about 10 to 13 kilohertz, this one you have to be a bit careful with this because it's a bit genre specific. So those trashy metals and stuff will highlight the slightly more off timbre in the treble region on solid state for me personally. And I think the open mesh, the mantle mesh, is playing a little bit of a role here. It's smooth, don't get me wrong, it's just not quite the timbre my brain agrees with in regards to, for example, cymbals and hi-hats. I've been around real drums for many years, and I feel as though this is a little tiny bit crunchy and a little bit swishy swashy. On the levels of Lcd5, on tubes, this is really resolved. Definitely helps that a great deal. It's the same story as Utopia. The timbre is really improved by tubes, but Calderas on tubes is it's something else altogether. On the LTA Z10E, on the Cayin HA300 Mark II with L-Rogs, on the Astel & Kern CA1000T, it's absolutely gorgeous. It's become my favorite ZMF headphone. Unfortunately, it's knocked off my beautiful, beloved Verite off the perch a little bit because I am getting a little bit of Verite and a little bit of Atrium with more resolvability and technicality out of the same headphone, and it prevents me from going, okay, let me listen to Verite right now. I think Verite's got a more holographic presentation, but Caldera's incisiveness and Caldera's big body of instruments, it really does sound big. The instruments really do sound full and in-depth and really large sounding, and I love that. So conclusion, should you buy the Calderas? I think because this review is so late, many of you already own it. So tell me in the comment section how your experience has been. For me, it's like discovering your old love again and finding their soul in the back of the sofa, and it's divine. Without the quirkiness of Susvaras and needing an entire mortgage for the reference chain. You can drive Calderas pretty easily. Calderas, solid 4 tigers out of 5. Well done, Zach. This is exceptional. If you fancy reviews such as this, consider joining Patreon, where you get early reviews, my thoughts and feelings as equipment comes in, if my feelings change on equipment, way before YouTube and way before the review is complete. And you get to talk to me via voice and ask my advice in the private Telegram chat. If this is beyond your means, your like, your share, and your comment down below is all I require from you. Until the next one, peace.